We're going to try a bit of a different video here today. So, we don't have the car out yet, but one of the things I've been meaning to do, and it's actually a pretty nice day outside. The wind's not howling, it's not freezing ass cold. So, one of the things I need to do is get the Caterpillar parts boxed up. We have the main air cleaner there. If we move, oh my gosh, we got so much stuff, but I've got the starting engine, fuel tank. I hope those weren't important that I just threw on the ground. We got starting engine, fuel tank. The diesel intake manifold is somewhere. And there's the pony air. No, that's the oil fill and separator. So we got all those parts we need to put in there. But the diesel air cleaner is the biggest one. Then the intake runner for the diesel, which is also the muffler for the pony, or not the muffler, but the part of the exhaust system that, gets hot and then does all the things. I'm already screwing this up, but the point is we're going to build a crate, and I'm going to make a video out of it and see if it turns out and how people like it. So I've got some of this old OSB here. We used to use this stuff to cover the grain trailer, but since we have a combine and we can cut our own rye now, we don't have to go get the grain. And also the rakins have torn into this enough over the years, and it's just sat outside enough that it's kind of weathered down. And so I've been chopping pieces of it up and using it on various things. And so I figured it would be a good day to use all this to build my crate, because I'm all out of wafer board. And so this OSB will work fine. And I've got more over here if I need it, but we're not going to use this stuff. Well, I might use this board because it's twisted and all that, but I'm not using those 1x6s, because that's my good lumber for building like shelves and such. So you're going to come with me as we build this shelf, and I've got all my scabs over here. I don't think this is a particularly good piece. None of these should be particularly good pieces, but they are usable. So we got our uprights made out of scab lumber. It's not going to be perfect, but it'll hold together, and that's really all that matters. Crates are not meant to be high quality items. They are just meant to stay together. So we're going to do all that. And I also need the skill saw. We'll set the sawhorses up after we get the... We don't need those on there right now. Those need to be welded, like a bunch of other things around here. Well, why don't you weld those? That's because I don't want to. We need this. Need this. And we should be able to make all of our cuts with the skill saw, because I don't want to drag out the frickin' miter saw. And Carpentry Kitty has come to assist us. Hey, you want to say hi? You want to say hi? No, he doesn't. All right, well, that's as much as you guys are going to get from him. So, anyway, the plan is, and yes, I know we use Ryobi power tools. Go throw a fit about something else. The plan is we're going to make this 2 foot long, or not, I'm sorry. We're going to make it 2 foot high, 3 foot long, and probably 16 inches wide. And that should accommodate the air cleaner and a whole bunch of other stuff that I'm going to cram in this crate. And I'm going to make this solid enough, in theory, I'm going to make it solid enough that we can stack some things on top of it, which just makes it that much more useful, because now we can just leave it right on the floor and put a whole bunch of stuff on it, and it's not going to hurt anything. So that's the plan. Let me gather the rest of my materials, and we'll get started. So I have my variety of pieces here. Initially, I was going to try and avoid using this. That lasted about 5 seconds, because this board in particular is wrong in just about every way you can possibly imagine. It is split, it is cupped, it is twisted, it is bowed, bent backwards, inside out, and upside down. It is more crooked than a dog's hind leg, but we can cut it up into short scabs, and it will serve fine to hold the edges and corners of the crate up. And that is also what this old pallet board's going to be for, because I've had the thing in that barrel for years. I mean, not in the barrel specifically, but it's been shuffled around for years, and I have never once used it, and so it's going to get used now. This is another piece that I have been kicking around for years that I've never used, and it's cupped. So, I mean, it came off a pallet too, I think, but it's junk. It's cupped. It's cupped pretty bad enough you can almost see it accurately on camera. Yeah, that's real. It's pretty bad. So I'll probably rip this in half. I'll take the nails out of it probably, and I'll rip it in half, and then we'll use that to put in the middle between our crate edges. And for the OSB, This piece here, I'm almost certain is the width that I want. It does need to be 2 foot. I was going to change everything, but I can't do that now. So this is a foot-ish. So we're going to cut this one to a foot, and so that'll give us 24 inches, which is more than enough to accommodate the height of the diesel engine air cleaner. And instead of making it 3 foot long, I'm going to make it 30 inches long, and we're going to go 16 wide because that is more than enough to handle everything. So we're going to go get this set up on the sawhorses and rip it down, and then we'll cut everything to length and start putting it together. I'm not overly concerned if this is super accurate or not. It just has to be close. So measure once, cut twice. That's probably close enough. Then all I have to do is line up my marks, and in theory, this will be sort of straight when I get done. Now, we're also assuming that the last time I cut this, it was straight, which it probably isn't because I was the last person to cut it. That's probably. Oh, yeah. We're not building a church. Tough if we were, it'd be a little off. Now, some of you might say, well, why didn't you take your piece that was 1 foot and use it as your straight line? Well, the reason I didn't is because it's probably more crooked than what I'm doing right now. Oh, wow, this is pretty crooked. So I guess it probably didn't really matter. Maybe. It'll be close enough. We'll shave it down later, right? No. Last thing I want to do is saw into my sawhorses. This end should be okay. Oh, yeah. Close enough. Close enough. Close enough. Well, it got a little wide here on the end, but otherwise it's actually pretty spot on. That's impressive. This is not a factory edge. That is a cut edge, but this is a good piece right here. All right, well, I already kind of forgot what I said I was going to do, so I'm pretty sure I said, I'm going to trip over that. I'm pretty sure I said it was going to be 30 long. I know my writing's horrible, get over it. It's going to be 16 wide, and it's going to be 24 high. So we've already accomplished this because we're going to put 2 of those pieces together, so we don't need to worry about that. So I don't even know if you can see what I wrote. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna cut our long pieces first, and we're gonna need 4 of them. So 30 inches times 4 is 120. That's 10 foot. I'm gonna have to get into the second piece. We also need 4 of these. That's gonna be 48. And so once we get all that taken care of, we won't have much of an issue. So I'll be able to cut, because these are 8 foot still, the 2 pieces I had set out. That third piece is short, but these are all 8 foot. So we should be able to get 2, and then we'll have some drops. We're probably going to have to cut into the third piece, but that's all right. So we're going to cut the long ones first, and then we'll see what we got left and go from there. $60. Yeah, see, we're a little short. Are we? Can I get 3? Am I dumb? I think I am dumb. I said 30 inches, didn't I? That's what I wrote down. So that'd be 30, 60, 90. Yeah, I'm dumb. We can do another one. So 5 foot is 60 inches. So where's my 90? There it is. Hell yeah, that's going to be just about right. Just about right. See, the nice thing is, if it's a little inaccurate, we can always take up the slack. If I can find my marks, we'll be in business. But yeah, we can always take up the slack somehow or other. It's not a big deal. It's probably going to be a little short because, you know, blade thickness and all that, but we'll just go ahead and err on the side of caution there. And again, we're pretending this is square. It's probably not. But again, we're not building a church. Oh boy, that's crooked. That is very, very crooked. Okay, so one of you's probably wondering about the bottom, and don't worry about that. We'll take care of it when the time comes. I'm almost certain I cut these crooked. I probably should have. I don't even know that that square is square. It might not be, but that's all right. We got 3 out of the 4 pieces. It helps if you can do math. So we just need one more long piece out of the other chunk, and we should be able to get all of our short pieces, no problem. And then I might be able to make the bottom out of a full width material, but I doubt it. Probably end up using that just so we don't have any waste, because a strip like this is, well, it ain't worth much. And what I can do is use all this up on the bottom and layer it to take up slack in, so to speak, take up slack in places where it's like coming apart there and it's like peeling. I can basically run a drop one way on the bottom and then the other way, you know, lengthways and then across, and that'll take up all the slack and use up all this material, because yeah, this is worthless other than doing that. I mean, it doesn't serve any purpose. So when you have a piece like this one where you've got 2 edges that have been sawn, the best way to determine which one is straight is to face the side up that's easiest to write on. That's real scientific, that is. And then also what you want to do is reuse the square that you are questioning whether or not it's actually square. That's what you want to do, because I mean, it's just like when you build stuff with a tape measure. You want to use the same tape measure and go from the same direction through the whole project, because everything's a little bit different. That, you know, 30 inches on one tape might be 1/8 of an inch off compared to 30 inches on another tape. And so you just keep everything the same, and then that way, if it's going to be crooked, it's all going to be crooked together instead of half of it being straight. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is why I am not building houses. If I was going to build my own house, well, it'd be just as crooked as the one I live in now. That is a fact. You throw your square on the ground too. That helps with accuracy. Now I got two lines here. You can't see them, but one of them's accurate, the other's not. So you split the difference rather than figuring out which one's closer to your actual measurement. Okay, now I said these were going to be 16. We're going to need, well, this is a foot, right? I'm not, yeah, okay. We need 4 of these. 16. And thankfully on this one it's red, all the 16-inch increments, because that's your center line for studs when you're building a stud wall. So 48. Can we get, oh, we're going to get just enough out of this drop. Probably. It's going to be close, guys. It's going to be real close. I actually prefer it that way. I like to use up all the material so I don't have all these weird scabs and drops left. It really helps because we have enough room taken up with, you know, various pieces of lumber. You're always going to end up with more scabs. So when you get a chance to use up some of the half-ass lumber you've been saving for years, you better take it and use it all. Oh, that's going to be accurate. Yeah, this isn't somebody's house, thankfully. We're going to have to scoot the sawhorses together after this. Damn it. Alright, that looks good. Now we gotta cut all this stuff. Alright, so in the middle, when we're holding the sides together, I don't really care if it's a 1x or a 2x. I don't really care because I've got shorter screws, and if I have to cut them off and file them down so I don't cut my hand, not a big deal. So these are going to go in the corners. So first, we need to see how long this crooked piece is because I'd like to use it up. Alright, it's 81. So we can't quite get all the pieces we need, but we can get about 3 of them. That'll leave us, because it needs to be 2 foot, so that'll give us 6. And yeah, that'll give us another 9 inches after that. Well, we can use that short little scab somewhere else. And then this piece is 5 foot. So, let's see here. We have a total of 11 feet we can work with, but it's got to be even, so really we have 10, so we can get 10 2-foot pieces before we run out of lumber. So we'll cut most of them out of this, obviously, and then we'll finish with the pallet board. But of course, we have to measure backwards, you know. I did cut all those at 24. Am I stunned? Nah, it's fine. It'll be fine. Oh boy. You don't need to worry about it. Measure once, cut twice. Don't actually do... Wait, that was... Yeah, okay. And 6 foot. So for accuracy, halfway through your project, you want to switch to a different measuring device. This speed square is actually mostly sort of kind of square, but the board's crooked, which means all of our cuts are going to be just as crooked on this stuff as what we did on the OSB, which means that by the time we get everything done, we should have an even amount of negatives, which will make it a net positive, because that's math. You can't argue with figures. You can argue with facts, but you can't argue with figures. And the figures say that this is going to work out really, really good, or it's not. You know, I got more lumber, I just don't want to go get it. So we're going to try and use what we have here without screwing it up. another thing, we'll come in here and make sure that our saw is set at the correct depth, and it is, so it should cut through this. I have a battery-powered skill saw, but it doesn't go deep enough to cut through a 2x. Alright, so for this piece of pallet wood, I mean, I'm pretty sure I took all the nails out of it, but I always like to double check because when they build pallets, a lot of the times those nails are not supposed to come out, and some stupid people take the pallet apart and then get mad when the nail doesn't come out. And you don't really want to hit that with your saw. Which end is better? Oh, that's got a split in it. We'll use this end. Oh, that's got a split in it too. Son of a... Okay, which split is more manageable? This one is more manageable. By golly, we can freehand this one. Probably. Split and fell into multiple pieces, so we're good to assemble it. Okay, so assembly. This is real scientific. We're going to use those screws. Do I face the label out? Yeah, okay, so if you can't read that, those are number 8 by 1 3/4 screws, and they take a T20 bit. Now, I have some 3-inch screws here, but those are overkill. And these will be enough to go through the OSB into the 2x without much problem. So what we're going to do first is assemble the first layer, if you will. And then we'll put the bottom on after we get kind of the shell put together. So this is going to be real scientific. And before anyone asks, yes, this is how I assemble everything. On the floor. No, I'm just kidding. Most of the time it's on tires or something. But we actually have a shop floor that we can use for now. So, oh, I want my clamps. Hang on. Yeah, so some of you might be wondering why I don't have a proper shop, and it's because we're just not that rich. All right, so some of you are going to find this hard to believe, but there was a time where I didn't even have such luxuries as these clamps right here. These things are awesome. I love them. I think I've used them on damn near every woodworking project, and that stuff is yellow pine. That'll splinter you to no end, even if you didn't ask for it, and I'll be damned if I didn't just shove a piece of that in my finger a minute ago, and it hurts. Oh, there's still a chunk in there. All right, we better get that out before I continue. That hurts. Yeah, like I said, you just got to be careful with this yellow pine. It does not play around. It really doesn't. Oh, look at that. We have some of these old screws in here. So some of you might be wondering, again, all the wondering, why we don't, or why we're not using nails here. And the reason is because I like screws. That means I can take this apart if I need to. So screws are better for, hang on. You only use nails if you're going to put something under like shear force. And what I mean by that is two pieces that are going to want to move up and down that way, you know, shearing. That's what nails are for. Screws are much better at, I don't know exactly what it's called, but basically tension force. Screws stop stuff from wanting to pull apart, and nails like to just loosen up over time because you're depending on the friction of the wood fibers to hold everything together. So with a screw, in my opinion, it's better to build a crate out of a screw because it'll hold better. And when you have a screw with such a short, it doesn't have a lot of weight on it in this application, so there's not going to be any shear force for the screws to resist, but even at that, I'm putting enough in that it's not going to go anywhere. just need to get a few in to hold it. And yeah, there's going to be more than enough screws to stop this thing from ever wanting to come apart. Believe that. And I'm putting so many in because these 2x are still pretty crooked, so I want to make sure everything's fairly flush. And that looks good. So now we can move on to the other end. All right, well, we're pretty much almost done, maybe. So the hard part now is doing the bottom, and all right, I'll admit, oh, okay, never mind. It's actually pretty straight. I was gonna say it sits and wants to do this, but it doesn't. So, okay, I must have had it on an uneven part of the floor. So, yes, there's a little bit of reinforcing that I still need to do, and this is way overbuilt. I will admit that 100%. But the thing is, when I'm not using this for the D4 parts anymore, it can be used for something else. I don't know what, but something else, and it should last a long time. So, to make the bottom, I know I said we could use this drop. The problem with that is that I kind of thought for some reason I would have another drop about this size, but I didn't because I'm dumb. So what we have here, what we got left is pretty much this chunk of pallet, which isn't much. That's not going to run the length of the box. And we have this 9-inch piece of wood, which I don't know about you, but I could certainly use a 9-inch piece of wood. So what this means is that because this is better than what I got, but it's not good enough. So, it's not long enough to handle this big a box, but I generally don't mess with boxes this big. So it's not such a big deal. We'll save that for later. That means we got to figure out something for the bottom because I'm dumb and I forgot. And again, I've got more lumber. I just don't want to go out to the big shed and get it because most of that stuff is actually pretty good material. So the bottom of this actually has to be pretty stout. We can't just make it out of this flimsy wafer board, because it'll sag in the middle, and nobody wants to sag in the middle. So I have this 1x here. Oh wait, is this a good? This is a mid piece. I have a bunch of stuff out here for shelf building. I don't think that was one of them. That might have been a decent piece that I used on something else. So yeah, we got that, and we've got... I've got another sheet of this OSB, but I need something a little more robust to go across there. And those aren't going to cut it either because, well, they're not much more. They're yellow pine, and like I said, they'll give you a splinter if you look at them wrong, and they'll split if you look at them wrong too. So I suppose we need to go out to the big building and select us a board that we can chop up and use. Now, okay, some of you may have looked in the background. You may have seen this one. We're not using it. That is a good piece. That is for shelf building only. That is some old-ass lumber. It's a very long, continuous piece. And I'm looking at building this great big entertainment center sometime in the next little bit, maybe, in theory. And I want to have some continuous pieces like that I can cut because this thing's going to be like 7 foot long. And yeah, I'd like to be able to get 2 cuts out of one board, not have these weird scabs that I have to deal with. So let's go out to the big building and see if we can get anything that will help us out. Well, let's hold up for a minute because as I was about to go walk out there, I just remembered I had this really crappy, I think it's a 2x8, and I think it's split in the middle, and I think I can use it. Which one is it? I think it's this one. This is not a very good one. I am not building a shelf out of this. Yeah, see, it's split down there. You may not be able to see it. That would be perfect to chop up. Actually, yeah, right here. This was holding somebody's ceiling up. Not in good shape. There were worse boards, believe me. That whole thing was sketchy. That's a story for another day. Point is, we can use this. I think it's a 2x8. How wide is this bad boy? 7.5? 7. They shorted us again. I can't remember because for those of you that don't know, dimensional lumber, it says 2x4, 2x6, 2x8. It is not actually 2 inches by 6 or 2x4 or whatever. It's like a 2x4 is 1.5 inches by 3.5. approximately. A 2x6 is 1.5 by 5.5. A 2x8 I thought was supposed to be 1.5 by 7.5, and then when you get to a 2x10, it's 1.5 by 9.25. But apparently this is 2x8s are 1.5 by 7.25 or so. It's approximate. It's, you know, a lot of people say, oh, why don't they just make them the bigger dimension? Well, if you're a lumber yard and you're cutting a piece like this out of a tree, you're trying to get as much wood out of as little tree as possible. That's why we have OSB and particle board and all this other stuff. There's no waste. Every bit of lumber that comes out of that tree, even the branches and stuff, it's all used. Even if it's ground into powder and mixed with glue, it's used. So when you're the lumber yard and you're cutting trees, and you can shave off a 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch off of each board that you sell, it still technically has enough strength to do the job, you know, but you're doing this over millions of boards. All of a sudden, you've saved a bunch of lumber, and then you can sell that smaller lumber and make as much or more money, which is why they do it. Just for those of you that don't know, I imagine if you're watching this, you know a little bit about carpentry. But we can chop this thing up, and I'm not going to feel bad about it because it has a split down here, and I've got a bunch more of these. We took this guy's house down, and there was a bunch of old pine boards in it. So the second one here that's next to the one I'm going to cut up, this one is actually a little bit better. This is an older piece. Now it is split. That's how old it is, because it just split right down the middle. It's not necessarily the best, but it's light years ahead of what you can get nowadays just looking at the rings. And while this one is a little bit of a denser board, it is lighter. This is a lighter board than this one right here. Some of you might say, oh, is this oak? It is not oak because it doesn't smell like oak when you cut it and everything. We cut up a bunch of these to make a new trailer deck, and they're all pine. I thought they might have been oak, but they're not. They're all pine, but this one's not as good. It's got a bunch of defects in it, so we'll chop it up to finish the crate. But don't you think for a minute that we're not going to use this piece right here, because the way I'm going to do this, all right, so I made the box 16 inches wide, right? Well, the interior is going to be just a little bit smaller than that, right? Because I went on outer dimensions when I was building this. So, oh, okay, well, all right, it's not actually, it's actually a little bit bigger because I cut stuff crooked, and also because I bolted everything, or screwed everything together on the outside, I mean. So interior-wise, what we essentially have is 16 inches to work with. Well, assuming that 2x8 is actually 7.25, that's going to be 14.5, which means we're going to have an 1.5 inch gap, okay? So the way you solve that is by splitting the difference, and then I can put a piece of wafer board on the bottom if I want. I can just put a single 1x, I can cut that down to length and stick it in here and just run it in the middle to cover the gap, because I've got plenty of leeway here. 24 is taller than this needs to be to accommodate the air cleaner, because we'll take the pre-cleaner off and we stick it in here, and that'll reduce the height quite a bit. So I'll get the 2x8, I'll cut it to length, we'll take that pallet board there, we should be able to cut it in half, and then I'll stick it between these two pieces on the bottom, on each end, which will give us a good, strong, secure place to screw the bottom boards onto. And then we can adjust everything as needed, reinforce it where necessary, and finish it up. So we're going to need two pieces at approximately 30 inches, which means we'll need 60 inches. And I'm almost certain, yeah, see, we've got almost 8 feet to this split. 8 foot is right here. This is 7 foot back here. I don't know if you can see all this or not because I zoomed in with the camera. But 7 foot is just before the split, and 8 foot is just after. So really it's only a foot of length on this board that we lose, but it's right in the damn middle. So that's bad. All right, so pretty much 8 foot. This is a 14-foot board, which means we have 13 usable feet, but it's going to end up in a 7-foot section and a 6-foot section, pretty much. So it's really dealer's choice on what we cut. So in an instance like this, what I'm going to do is look at this board pretty close, and I'm going to decide which end I like the least, and that's what we're going to cut into our shorter pieces, and then we'll leave the longer continuous piece with fewer defects for another project, because those are usually always handy. I mean, you know, 2x8s aren't cheap, so it's nice when we can save them for something. You might as well come along with me as we inspect the board. So that's fine. I'm liking this side better. This is the longer side because it doesn't have quite the knots in it. I mean, it's got a knot right there, but it's not bad. So yeah, 7 foot's about right. Oh, sorry, 7 foot's about right here, and 8 foot is about right here. So we can cut this out without a problem. I might make some smaller blocks. Now on this side, it's got this great big knot down here, but it's also starting to split on the end. And I don't know that I want to, I mean, the crate's not going to be kicked around, you know. This would be fine. It would run forever and be okay on that crate. It's not going to hurt anything. But I need to make sure that the other side doesn't look wonky either, because while this board is not good in its 100% complete form, we might be able to use it elsewhere. Okay, so yeah, the other side of the split doesn't look half bad. This is not a concern because it's not going to fall at a 30-inch increment. So it's not a big deal there, because I don't want to have this cut off at an end where there's a knot and try and put a screw up through it. That's going to be a bad time. This is a little bit softer, so I think what we're going to do here, I think we're going to take this end, because this is the shorter end right here. This is going to be the better use of material. I'll cut it off at 7 foot. We'll have a 7 foot piece, and then we'll end up with about a 6 foot piece. And I think we'll use this end for our crate because it has more knots in it and more splits. Really just down here. It's not bad, but I think this is the side we're going to use. So I'll get it processed up and we'll go back and put it together. Perfect. I should have this balanced about right to where it will go ahead and fall one direction or other when I go to cut it. Maybe. Tough. Alright. We'll just do this very carefully. These are nice boards. I almost feel bad using them on this, but oh yeah, that's gonna look good if we can fix it where it stays in there. Oh yeah, that's gonna work great. All right, so the other part of the pallet board did not work because it wasn't going to give me enough material to put a screw in. So I found another short piece of 2x. This piece is interesting, not just because of that grain structure there. This was an old tree. It's as light as a feather, though. There's no weight to this, but that is a very fine grain structure. This had to have been a very old tree. Very pine scented. It smells wonderful. But the thing about this is that it is a 4-inch wide board, but it's only 1.5 inches thick. So I don't know what they were doing here, but it does fit in here, sort of. I may have to persuade it in the rest of the way. Come on. Yeah, that's, by golly, I think that's going to be just about right. So I'll put a couple of short screws in each end, and then I might put a 3-inch screw kind of in the middle down, so it'll end up in the middle of these boards. I haven't decided yet. We may just settle for the short ones. It's not going anywhere. It can't go anywhere. It's not possible for it to go anywhere. But the other side, I got her cut a little loose, so it's held in with the clamp. But don't you worry, there will be plenty of purchase on this bad boy by the time we get done. Now we've switched to the number 9. Where's my hand? There it is. The number 9 by 3-inch screws. They take a T25 bit to drive them. So some of you that are a little more astute, because you are more fluent with carpentry, are going to ask why I haven't put anything across here. Because this is the bottom that I have facing up right now, just so we're all clear. A lot of you are going to ask, why don't I have anything here? Well, the reason why I don't is because I want as much room in the bottom of this as possible. You know, I've got the corners and stuff, but not having boards right here gives me just a little bit of extra room to work with. So what I'll do, because it does need the support there, you know, if you're pointing that out to me and you're like, oh, hey, you need to put something there. Oh, I agree. It definitely needs something there. So what we're going to do is we're going to put the board flush with the outside, and then we'll cut this 1x over here and run it down the middle on the outside, and that'll tie everything together, and it'll just be hell for stout. I mean, it's not going to come apart anytime soon. I don't know that you could drop it from an airplane and it would still hold, but it'll do pretty good for what it's built for. This will also set it up off the ground just a little bit and really help it. So another reason I'm using screws instead of nails, another advantage to screws over nails that I didn't mention earlier, is that your wood is much, much less likely to split when you use a screw. Because that split right here, if you didn't see it. Maybe I shouldn't have used this end. No, that's all right. It'll firm up. I got this one left. Might as well just let's try some here. Sometimes you can drive a screw in like that and it'll kind of hold everything together. I really don't think this is going to come apart anytime soon. I have seen worse lumber go into crates that were holding a lot more and they didn't come apart for a long, long time. So we're going to be okay, I think. So we'll put the other side kind of like that. We'll stick that knot out there. We'll get our board flush and sort of centered to where we got good room to work with. And yeah, we have this gap here. We'll fix that. Not a big deal. I might. Okay, if I was really industrious, I'd rip a piece and stick in here, but it's not really worth it. It's too. I'd have to drag the table saw out, and I'm not really into that right now. So we'll just screw this one down, and we should be all right. Oh, damn it. Okay, well, yeah, we're still good. Well, damn, I may have to now. Everything's wanting to split on me. You'd think if it splits enough that I would learn that, maybe I need to drill some pilot holes or something, but nah, it'll be fine. So I was just thinking, I've got this piece right here. If this is wide enough to fit in that gap, I will cut it to length and we'll go ahead and throw it in. Is it going to... Oh, that's just perfect. Okay, it needs a little bit of encouragement here in the middle. Oh, that's just too perfect. All right, I'll cut it to length and we'll throw that in. Then we'll do our sides. You know what? I like that. By golly, I do. I don't think we need 3 screws to hold this one down. All right, so this is the end out of a center board that we made for that trailer deck that I was talking about a minute ago. The reason I'm mentioning stuff like that is just to show you that no lumber goes to waste around here, really. Small stuff might get thrown away, but stuff like this, we always end up using. No waste at all. No, sir. And the drop that came off of that centerpiece will make an excellent drift for when I need to hammer the crap out of a rotor, a brake rotor, because I don't want to destroy it. It'll be awesome for that. It'll fit just right in my hand, and yeah, it'll be great. It'll take a lot of punishment too. So, let's flip this thing over. How many splinters do you think I'll get when I do it? Get those out way there. Alright. Yeah, that definitely does need a little bit of sealing power, but come here. I like it. I do. I like that. I think that's going to work really well. So, yes, I will reinforce the sides. And chances are good I'll leave the bottom as is. I might take a piece of cardboard. I used to have some cardboard around here that I had saved for that. I might even just put a trash bag in the bottom and leave it. But, you know, we'll reinforce that a little bit. We'll put some handles on it, you know, to grip it. And we should be good. Well, I'll be a monkey's uncle if these aren't going to work because they're too thin and the screw is too long. It's going to go through both this board and the plywood and stick out in the middle. I know I said earlier in the video that if I had to cut them off and file them down, I would, but I lied. I don't actually want to do that. That's hard on the side cutters, you know? So, and that's the same story. It's a 1x, so really I need more 2x material, or just to stack up on the 1x's, which I really don't want to do. I used all my 2x material. I don't know. So my only option now is to go and get another board and start ripping stuff down, which I can do. I just don't want to. Maybe it's worth it to double up on the 1x's. I don't have any shorter screws. I have some nails, I think. I might have some nails that will work. Let's go out to the white trailer and see. So, and I just put them out here this morning too. Isn't that convenient? So I think I remember where they were at. Yep, right here. Okay. These little bastards. Oh, sorry. Those little bastards right there. They are 1.5 inch nail. So they're not going to be much better than what I'm using, because those screws are 1.75 inches. What to do? I've done some thinking for a couple minutes, and I have an idea. It's kind of silly. I may have kind of forgot that I had to make a lid for this thing as well. And the plywood that I have over there is not wide enough to cover this whole thing because it's got that chewed, frayed edge, and it just wouldn't do very well. So I'll have to make a lid. Not a big deal. I've got plenty of lumber I can use. But I was thinking, you know, that lid needs to be fairly robust so that I can set stuff on top of this. So what that means is that I need to make like a cleat or something, not on this end necessarily, but it needs to sit down here, and then on the lid it needs to have another piece so that it rests in there and kind of locks it into place. Now the reason this is relevant to the uprights is because I don't want to use 2x's. It's too much, and I'd have to put them on the inside, and I don't really want to do that. I want to stick them on the outside. So what I think I can do, and I think this will solve my problem, is if I take some 1x's and I run them along this edge here on both sides, and then I put a couple of uprights in each spot, what I can do is put a screw in from this side and a screw in from that other side to hold everything together, and no screw ends will stick out, and I think that's going to work. However, we have another major issue, which is that it's getting dark outside. Because, you know, it is December. It's actually Christmas Eve. I don't really take holidays, you know, just I get bored. So because it's 4:30 and my phone's almost dead and it's almost dark, we're going to go ahead and stop here, and we'll come back another day, maybe even tomorrow, because you got to work off the Christmas dinner somehow, and we'll figure something out and finish this project up. What a dreary looking Christmas day. Still no wind, though, so I'm not going to complain too much. Hopefully this means it's going to rain tomorrow. I mean, they say it's supposed to. We could certainly use the moisture. It's getting dry. So I did some thinking last night on the box, and I know I said in the last clip of what I was going to do. And I'm sorry about the audio, by the way, throughout this. Uh, I was testing the microphone earlier when I was, marking out the stuff to cut it, and I thought that it was doing better than it actually was. But that's why we're doing this video. It's an experiment. So anyway, we'll get my tape measure out here. So I've been doing some thinking. I don't remember exactly what I said yesterday, but I'm pretty sure it had something to do with going out to the shed and getting more lumber, which I'm not going to do. We're going to use what we have and call it good. So I actually did some measuring. What we have here is about 17, and I know that's a little over 17, but it's going to be 17. And then I know this tape measure is squeaky. And then we got about 31 and a quarter. 31 3/8, something like that long. So what I figured out is that this last piece of OSB I have over here is long enough, right? But it's also wide enough, sort of. We can see there's the 17. This is not the worst spot. That honor goes to there. But what I think I can do here is take this out. Technically, it's like 18 wide, but I can rip it down to 17. It's going to have a few defects in it. But this is going to sit in the middle, because what I will do is I will rip it down, and then I'll cut it off at 31 or whatever. So we'll bypass We'll bypass this. It's going to be a little unsightly, but it won't be bad. But the point is I won't have to put any screws through this damaged edge here. Get it? You don't care, do you? So we can do that, and that's going to make our lid, because what I've realized was I was hesitating on using OSB for the lid because I didn't think it would be strong enough, but it actually will be strong enough because this OSB is going to be dry, which is the number one reason this gets weak, and also it's going to be resting on this edge here. It's going to be pretty well centered, so we'll have enough support in here. I might go ahead and put an additional edge in. We'll see. But this also brings me to the second part of this equation, which is I did not want to basically not utilize this drop right here. So I can rip this down. I can rip off this damaged edge if I cut it at 4 inches, which is plenty wide enough for supports. And then I can screw this in where I need it. And I should be able to get enough out of this piece that I, am using up all of my drops, and I don't have to go cut fresh pieces off of, good material, or rather, it's not so much good as it is just larger material. Now, I could also, even though I'm not going to, I could also take this piece of wafer board that is back here. I know this is the right size. This is like a full 40-some inches, and it's wide enough. I think it's... How wide is this exactly? If I can get a hook on it. It's 22, about. So, I've got plenty. I could use this, but I'd rather not, because that's a good piece of wafer board that we could use on something better. And this stuff is damaged anyway. It really needs to be ripped down because it's not much good as it is. And this will fit perfectly, and it will fit the aesthetic of the box, which is what we want. So I think that's what I'm going to do. So I'm not going to put these next few parts on camera because, well, the audio's all over the place from the last few clips, and I'd rather not repeat that. So I'm going to get everything not everything put together. I'm going to get everything cut, and then we'll come back here and put it together. If the only thing I'm waffling on is how much of that OSB strip out there I want to use as an additional edge here. If I want to put an additional edge in, I probably should just use those because they're already ripped down, and they're not really... I mean, they can be used, but they're only useful for stuff like this, and I don't do stuff like this all the time. So we might as well use it. And then I'll also take, because I got that piece there, I'll put it in the bottom. That'll cover the gap. It'll just help. It doesn't really need it, but the fewer bugs I can have crawling in here, the better. Mostly the mud daubers. I don't care so much about the spiders. But the mud daubers are real, and I know for a fact that the rats can't get into this unless they chew through all that cardboard, but there's going to be easier stuff for them to chew on. So I'm not too worried about it. So yeah, I'm going to get started and try and get this finished today because it is supposed to rain tomorrow, and I kind of want to pick stuff up and not have to drag it back out. Got everything cut for the final round, and you know what? It's not pretty, but it looks sort of uniform, or it will, and it'll work, and that's really all that matters. So first step is to get our uprights put in. And what I did was I cut those short. What we're going to do is just run everything up and down. So the lid will rest here. There will be a small provision here in the middle for extra strength. And then it'll also rest on these 2x. So we should be able to stack more or less whatever we want on top of this. I mean, within reason, you know. And it shouldn't bother anything. But we're going to try something here at the end of this video just to remind us that this is not to be used as an engine stand, which is probably what it'll end up for if we're not careful. But for right now, let's get everything put together. Double check here. Yep, I got enough room for this screw gun. I brought the angle drill just in case, but I don't think we'll need it. We will need a clamp, the short screws, and the bit for the short screws, which I forgot about. Two screws on the bottom. Don't worry, we'll get that shoved in here on the bottom. She's built hell for stout, I'll say that. May not be pretty, but it ain't gonna go nowhere. Where's my bottom screw? Oh, there it is. Tell you what, we'll fix that bottom too real quick. Oops, that one didn't hold much. Well, really just made it nice. Okay, got it up on sawhorses. I'm going to see if you guys can figure out what I'm going to do. I'll give you 3 guesses. I'm not going to give you any hints, though. But you've only got a few seconds to figure it out. Well, maybe we don't have it anymore. Oh, we do. Come here. Ha ha. I don't even know that this stuff is still good. Let's get out here in the light. What do the instructions say? We'll use the camera here. Use outdoors between 50 and when humidity is below 65% to ensure proper drying. Lightly sand glossy surfaces, clean with soap and water, rinse and let dry. Lead is toxic. Yeah, whatever. We don't care about that, do we? You guys think the humidity is less than 65%? Yeah, it's probably not. We're going to paint it anyway, though. This can has been out here for almost 3 years. It's probably junk. But we'll at least paint the lid. Maybe. All right. What do you fellers reckon? Oh, check it out. Are paint fumes toxic? Do you guys know? Woo! Oh man, that'll give you some Christmas cheer. If you know what I'm saying. Good grief. Yeah. Oh. Look at it. We're professionals. Somebody is just screaming right now. You're not supposed to paint that way. Stop. It's going to adhere to all the surfaces. All that dust is just going to give it texture. I love this. I love painting stuff. It's so fun. I hardly get to paint anything anymore. It doesn't have to be super yellow. It just has to be yellow enough. Ooh, wind, goodness. Can you guys even see those paint fumes? It said 10 to 16 inches away, but I can't tell how long anything is. So we're just going to do this, and that looks good enough. Ah, dang it. Well, that just looks bad. Well, I mean, it's yellow enough. It looks like somebody sneezed really hard, but let's be honest. I didn't paint this because we would forget what was in it. I painted it because I wanted to paint something, and we had that yellow paint, and I thought I might as well use it. I thought we had a second can, though. I mean, maybe I'll put it in here. You never know where I'm going to put stuff around here. Did I stick it in here? No, that's just all sorts of other crap. There's no paint in there. Yeah, I could have sworn we had a brand new can of that yellow laying around, but I guess not. What's back behind there? Anything? No. There's nothing. It's just anti-rust. We don't have anything else. Well, that's all right. That'll be good enough. We'll just face that side out, and it'll be fine. I just wanted to paint something. Phew, man, those paint fumes are strong. When they said well-ventilated, they probably meant a well-ventilated area, like a real one, not whatever this is. The wonderful thing about this shop is that no matter what direction the wind's blowing out of, it always blows stuff back in the shop. So, okay, well, this looks horrible on camera. I guarantee you it looks better in person. What if we back up? Does it look... Okay, yeah, see, it looks better from a distance and at night, which is all that matters. So we'll let that dry for a little bit, and then I'll pop the lid off. We'll put everything in it, and we'll wheel it over to where it's going to sit for the next 20 years. I'm kidding. It's not going to sit there for 20 years. It'll just sit there for a little bit. We'll just shuffle it around as needed. I'll use the dolly. But yeah, we'll let that absorb for a little bit before I go touching it. I don't want paint all over my clothes, even though I'm going to wash them today. And then we'll get all the cat parts thrown in and call this a video. Paint's not completely dry, and the smell of paint fumes in here is very intense. So probably should have actually maybe not done that probably, but I did it anyway, so who cares? We're going to go ahead and throw stuff in here, though, because I want to go in because, well, you know, that's how it works. So first thing that we're going to put in, I'm not going to go on the side where the wet paint is. First thing we're going to put in here is the diesel engine intake runner. And we may have to adjust this, but I think that's going to work. Next, we'll get the diesel engine air cleaner assembly, which, if we measured anything correctly, I'm going to be so mad if this doesn't fit. You guys have no idea. How's that? Oh, perfect. Perfect. I'll give you guys a closer look when I get down here, but oh, that's going to work great. I like that. Oh, that's real slick. I like it. Okay. And conveniently, I have all these rags here, and we just as well stuff one in there just to help it out. I've got rags in the other holes. Starting engine air cleaner. Poor thing. That's probably going to leak. I think I left the oil in it. Governor. Oh, I did put a new spring on that. I don't know if it's tight enough, but we'll find that out later. We'll set that all the way down at the bottom, like so. Oh, that's going to be real slick. Pony motor fuel tank. And the oil fill / breather assembly. That we're going to be a little bit more careful with just because it's got that piece on there. Okay, that should be all right. This here is a box full of D4 parts. All sorts of just random stuff that I know goes with this tractor. We're going to stick it in there. We also have this Grainger box, which has D4 parts in it. Brand new D4 parts, I might add. That should fit in there. Starting engine, air cleaner, housing, intake runner, all that stuff. That'll go down in there. It'll be pretty safe. Pony motor belts for the governor and the starter. Pony motor starter to pulley adapter. And finally, the starter for the pony motor, which is very, very heavy. And so we're going to set it in there kind of like that. I think we'll do just fine. That should be all of the D4 parts that I have scattered around the shop. That should all sit in there very nice like. Get you down in there. You can see all the stuff. Yeah, I know it's dark, but that'll sit in there and it will keep. And it should sit there for a while. Hopefully not too long, but it's going to be at least a year. I'm not going to get back to the cat anytime soon, but it's pretty easy to get into this if we need to. And I will have to move it around with the dolly. There's no other way, but that's all right. And then the carburetor, because somebody's going to ask about the carburetor, I put it up in here. It is in that box, I think. But it's not going to go in there just because... Well, I don't really want to dig for it right now. This was all the stuff that was easy to get to, more or less. I'm going to leave the carburetor alone. I'm not going to stick it in there. The magneto is back on the machine. If you missed the episode where I did that, it's not very exciting. Nothing in this Caterpillar D4 Restoration Revival Series failure has been very exciting. When we get back to the cat, I'm going to try and rectify that issue. But for right now, this will take care of all this. That way it's all together. We can move it around. It's going to be heavy. I'm pretty sure that starter weighs as much as everything else I put in there combined. Yeah, that'll take care of it. Well, guys, I think that's going to do it. I really wish I had another can of yellow paint. See, it doesn't look so bad now. It's only when you get close that it looks bad. But that'll be all right. I got rid of that can of yellow paint. It started to bother me one day for some reason. So, yeah, I know this wasn't very exciting. As I kind of hinted at in the beginning, this is an experimental video. I wanted to see how certain types of audio would come across and all that. So the segments where I was cutting all the plywood, or not plywood, OSB, sorry. You know what I mean. The segments where I was doing all that and the sound quality was like way off until I kicked the saw in. Now I know how all that sounds, and now I know what kind of videos I can do and how I have to move the camera around to get good audio and all that. We're working on it. I'm doing my best here. So, and I'm trying to improve what my best is, if that makes any sense. So, yep, I don't know when I'll get this uploaded, but today is Christmas, so Merry Christmas to all of you. Even though it's probably going to be late, I hope you all had a good Christmas. And we'll just keep plugging away at stuff. Still waiting to get the car out, and then we'll start on the shop improvement project. I also need to finish up the last episode in the shop cleanout project, but we're working on it. So anyway, I appreciate you guys watching. Let me know what you think of the video. Just if you'd like to see me build more stuff or not, because I'm still kind of throwing some things at the wall to see what sticks. So let me know what you think, and we'll catch you in the next one. Take care.